Now, I can appreciate that photography is much more than about just taking pictures. It's a process, and sometimes that process is slow and tedious and complex. Having a wonderful subject to photograph, like this beautiful old barn here, is never enough. There are always obstacles to overcome, compositional problems to sort through, and each adventure presents its own unique challenges, like how to showcase this old girl in context with its broader environment. This, I would eventually conclude, rested entirely on focal length. Focal length matters. And once I fine-tuned my composition, it was just a matter of waiting and hoping that Mother Nature would cooperate. But that consumed 5 return visits over the course of a week. But oh, it was so worth it. Let me take you on the journey of how I got there. So, it's traffic. Into the tourist season. How you doing, everyone? What a beautiful, beautiful night. If it wasn't for all the traffic. I'm actually along a pretty busy county road here in the southern part of the Door Peninsula. And this barn, I passed this barn many times, and I keep hoping for different conditions. I've photographed it a couple of times, but I was hoping tonight that the sky would light up. We have some really high wispy clouds on the horizon, so just either right before sunset or right after sunset. Sunset's going to be in about another 30 minutes. I'm hoping that the sky will light up nice and pink behind this barn. Let me show you what I got going here. Alright, well, you see I have this set up in a vertical orientation because the story of this really is not only the barn but the sky, just to show the big wide open space. And brighten this up so you can see it a little bit better. So what I'm hoping to do is take a panorama here with the barn in the right portion of the frame, and then keep moving to the left to get all of this open field and space here to the right, and hopefully those high wispy clouds, which, let me adjust this here, you may or may not be able to see there, hopefully they'll light up and I can take a shot at, aperture priority and let the shutter decide how long it needs to stay open. And with the fall foliage here, goldenrod and the wild aster and the grasses, and that's the story I hope to tell. Alright, so now we just wait for that sun. You can see it here behind me, getting low on the horizon. All this traffic noise really, really bothers me. It makes it difficult to focus, to concentrate. I've been going by this barn a few years now.
every season it seems just to get a little bit more weary. It's missing a few more boards. The roof is sagging just a little bit more than it was. And the back, kind of northwest corner of it is already collapsed. That's why I'm shooting from this side. And it's tough to get close over here because this buckthorn and hawthorn are so thick and so high, you can't possibly even get through there. So this seems to be the angle, and the way this autumn light is nice and yellow as it gets closer to the horizon. Especially there's a little bit of haze from the western fires still in the air, and nice golden light shining across this south surface of the barn here. It's really, really beautiful. So that's what I hope to capture. Maybe some nice gold color in the clouds, and those wispy clouds too. So a few more minutes, hopefully before we lose all the light here. Yeah, so I don't think it's too many more years before another Door Peninsula barn. You know, seeds to the elements. I don't think this thing is long for sale. Well, one of the reasons I like photographing old barns. I mean, it's such an integral part of the history, the story for them. Structures could tell families who lived here made their living from the land here. It's disappearing in a hurry, that's for sure. I hate to see that. Shooting at f8 ISO 100, by the way, and 16 to 35 millimeter lens at 16 millimeters. I'm underexposing a little bit. I know I can recover those shadows, but I'm really trying to bring out more color in the sky without actually blowing it out. Well, what looked promising kind of crapped out. Story of my life. Contrails in there too.
I'd like to start by talking about what worked here, and more importantly, what didn't, compositionally speaking. So going back to the beginning, this was the first shot I took, a test shot really, on full auto, just to get a baseline on shutter speed and aperture, and to begin dialing in a composition. It was right after I arrived, about 45 minutes before sundown. And I loved the light here. It was really beginning to glow, illuminating the weathered wood on the barn and skimming off the top of the meadow, really bringing out the gold in the grasses to the right and some of the goldenrod on the left, combined with the subtle stretch of greenery in the foreground speckled with white aster. I think it really draws the viewer's eye into the center of the image. So that's one for the plus column. But the clouds in the sky are so random and chaotic, and that wispy swirl over the roof on the right, it has a tendency to lead the eye out to the edge, for me anyway, and away from the focal point of the photograph. The dark window right in the center of the photo is what is supposed to hold you there. But it's not enough to anchor it. The bramble of bushes on the right are a bit of a mess as well, and I really don't think they had anything to the photo. But they were unavoidable and thick and impenetrable, and there was no getting around them. They went right up to the addition on the barn. Unfortunately, the wonderful color and interesting subject here are not enough to save this photo. For one thing, the scale is off to me. It's a 2x3 crop, and it looks too congested. The barn is way too domineering, and that throws the balance off, which is why I decided to go and take a different approach. This photo was taken 33 minutes later, 11 minutes before sundown, in the exact same spot as the previous photo. I hadn't moved, I didn't adjust my tripod, but I did open up the field of view on my lens from 20 millimeters to 16 millimeters. And what a difference that made, enabling me to capture more sky, but at the same time creating some really annoying distortion, the kind you often get with ultra-wide-angle lenses. There was considerably less light as the sun, which is off camera to the left here, was parked behind that thick band of gray cloud. So the meadow looks flat and dull. The wood lacks the character we saw in the previous photo, but the sky is much more interesting. The blues and the oranges are wonderful complementary colors and a favorite of mine. You'll see that color combination in many of my photographs. The bands of clouds in the horizon line also do a pretty good job to point to our main subject. And by positioning the barn in the lower third of the frame in a 16:9 crop here, really gives the image a sense of wide open space. And that's kind of what I was going for here. And it appears that the face of the barn is looking off to the left, giving it some much needed breathing room. But it's the distortion in this photo that ruins this for me. The barn appears to be leaning to the left. It wasn't. And that front section on the right is freakishly large because it's at the horizontal edge of where the lens distortion is the greatest. Okay, so by maybe creating a panorama, I'd be able to include more sky, more open field, a greater sense of space, and eliminate those distortions in the barn. So just 3 minutes after the previous shot, the sun squeezed out from behind the clouds, and I had just a minute or so to catch this light before the long shadows from the cedar trees out of frame to the left crept up onto the surface of the barn, or the sun disappeared again. So this was my only window of opportunity. It's a 7-shot panorama, catching about a 120-degree field of view across the scene. I'm still in the exact same spot with the same settings, but by orienting the camera vertically with the ultra-wide-angle lens at 16 millimeter, it pushes the entire scene further back. And look at the difference the direct low-angle side light makes compared to the previous shot, all in the span of just 3 minutes. It's like a completely different photograph. The colors are wonderfully vibrant. And again, that complement of yellow and blue, it's just so pleasing to the eye. And yet, there's still plenty of compositional chaos here. First and foremost, I guess, are those clouds. The sky, although beautifully pastel, looks completely disorganized and adds nothing to the overall aesthetics of the photo. And there's remnants of a contrail and some lens distortion, creating a wave in that dark band of clouds near the horizon. And I think that portion of the barn jutting off to the right does more to distract than anything else. So I reviewed and compared each of these photographs, noting what worked and what didn't. And there was still something else bothering me that at first I couldn't quite put my finger on, and then it hit me. It was my position, where I was standing relative to the main subject. I was just too close. In fact, if you look at the far edges of the barn, you can see a tree or a shrub or something peeking out over the roofline at the corner of the wall. Well, directly behind that, and you can't see it from this angle, but There are a few really beautiful young sugar maple trees on the edge of that field. And if I were to include those, it would add another layer of depth to the photo and more color. So I went back the following evening and I set up 30 feet further back from the barn. Same lens, same time of day. And I also decided to make another adjustment. Drop the height of my tripod about 18 inches or so. Again, the skies are clearing out over the barn. It's amazing how that does that every night. While we're here, might as well set something up. All right, ISO 100. 1/125th of a second at f11. That's what we're starting with anyway. Another contrail in the sky there too. Those are a pain in the ass to have to dodge out. Lovely light on that though now. See, that's the thing. This is the light that I'm looking for. But it's not the clouds that I'm looking for. We have nothing but empty skies here. And empty skies make for boring photos. Sorry. But they do. All right, I guess we'll just pack it up and head home. Try again. Here's how it turned out. I know, right? It's a terrible photo. But hey, it was just a test shot, and the only shot that I took that second evening. But look beyond that. Notice that by moving back 30 feet, it eliminated all the issues with distortion I was having with the barn. And it put that barn addition, off to the right, in better context and scale, as well as the bramble of bushes in front of it. And now the roof lines of the perpendicular structures are no longer competing with each other. That wonderful, wonderful sagging roof line that shows the fatigue that comes with age, having stood up to the elements for so long, is now really obvious. And not only improves the composition, it adds another dimension to our story. With a few more minor adjustments in mind, I now knew I had my final composition. All I had to do was wait for the right evening sky to emerge and for the trees to intensify in color. And hopefully, before the frost killed off the goldenrod and the grasses and the wild aster. Otherwise, I'd have to wait another year. So I returned again. Interesting, but nope. And again, nope. Finally, on my fifth attempt, I raced the setting sun and moving clouds to get the photograph that I had long envisioned and been trying to get for a week. Boy, it's going to be close. Oh, there's a sheriff. Probably going to stop me. No. Close one. I was doing 10 over. Don't break the law, kids. Oh, nice light on that barn now. Beautiful light off the goldenrod here now.
All right, guys. I got to get the shot before anything else, so. Stunning. What a beauty. What a beauty. All right, I'm going to go for a panoramic here. F8, 1/60th of a second here. Again, I think I may be just a little too late. The sun is beginning to go down behind some cedar trees that are well over a quarter mile away, but the shadows are cast very long and now right across the face of the barn. So that's it for light on the barn. But I may get some nice light on that sky behind the barn, and I can always work to lighten up the broad side of the barn, as it were.
I set out to capture a Door County sunset that brought out the onset of autumn chill combined with the last vestiges of summer warmth on this magnificent peninsula. I think I accomplished what I set out to do by waiting for the right fall contrast. A cool blue sky with billowy clouds reflecting the golden glow of late summer on the landscape. I absolutely love the smattering of clouds coming in from the upper left and right corners here and converging onto the peak of the gable end of the barn. The way the light illuminates the underside of them is, well, classic September. The streaks across the treetops on the far end of the field signal the end of day, and the contrast of the elegant robin's egg blue sky backdrop fades beautifully as it reaches toward the horizon, giving the entire top half of the photo this really broad, open expanse. There's now a great multi-dimensionality to the barn from this perspective, with its east side shrouded in shadow and guarded by the bramble of glowing buckthorn that pulls the eye deeper into the center of the photograph. The hint of shadow against the weathered surface of the barn, created by the cedar trees a quarter mile distant, and the glowing sky along the entire left edge, create intrigue. The goldenrod blooms in the foreground are tipped with the very last rays of the day's sun, and they stand out beautifully against the rich green grasses. And the tall dark weeds anchor the lower left third, and provide a counterbalance to the clouds in the opposite corner. But they're not too high like in the previous photo where they break the horizon line and cause a distraction. I purposely positioned my camera so as not to do so. And the result is it invokes this intimacy by putting you, or the viewer, into the scene at eye level rather than merely observing the scene. You become a part of it. I'm really, really pleased with the way this image turned out. I think it's a good representation of the Doors' autumn character. And it's probably the best photo I've taken all year. I think so anyway. I'd love to know what your thoughts are on this image, and the others. Please feel free to leave your comments below. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this behind the door adventure. And until next time, take care of yourself, and we'll see you down the road.